listening to Loud on the Set with Kyle and James.
A level-headed movie critic meets a loudmouth movie cynic.
And action! Welcome back to the show. My name is Kyle.
This is James.
And today, James, what are we doing?
Cold Calls Star Wars Edition Part 2.
Part 2, lukewarm calls.
Damn it, Kyle.
We're calling up our last guest here, and we are going to finish this out for now. We might get some listener mail in the future, but this is where it's going to end.
Well, can we then... You promise me we'll take a 2-year break until the next movie comes out?
Until Rogue One comes out in 1 year, but yeah.
Shit! Oh, my God.
All right,
all right.
Let's begin right here. Let's, you want to dial up Patrick?
Let's do it.
Let's give Patrick a call. You've got his number, right?
Oh, I do. In the meantime, everybody knows that Patrick was a panel member as well.
Let's see what Patrick has to say.
Patrick is great. We're going to have him in the studio again.
We will.
He knows it.
We will.
He knows it. He's VIP. Very important, Patrick.
Very.
Oh, we're corny. We're corny here. Oh, here we go.
Hello.
Patrick, what's going on, man?
Oh, hey, Kyle. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am excellent, thank you.
All right. Yo, I'm here too, Patrick. How you doing, man?
Oh, hey, James. How are you?
Wonderful. Let's talk. We're doing cold calls.
Let me can I pause for a moment? Okay, so currently I'm using headphones, and let me for your recording purposes. I don't know if this is better or if I unplug them, which I'm going to do right now. And if I talk directly to the phone, does that sound better, or do the headphones sound better?
That sounds great, Patrick.
This sounds better?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's fine.
You could do either, really.
Okay, let's do that.
All right, Patrick, shoot. Is there anything about Star Wars The Force Awakens that you want to say that you feel like you couldn't get out in our hour-plus worth of 2 episodes? Go, shoot.
The Star Wars extravaganza talkathon that we had.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. There are some more things about the cyclical nature of the story that I wanted to say. I'll try to get them out fast. So let's see. It's a third element to the cyclical nature, to kind of the recycle plot, as James said, is I find it really interesting that you have kind of the same plot superstructure that you had in the original movie, or maybe the first 2 movies, and you have some elements of Empire in there as well. But within, like, the internal elements of the story are what get all kind of switched around, you know. So, for instance, in the original movie, you have the Star Destroyer that kind of overtakes the Rebel blockade runner, and that's how we are introduced to characters and to you know, kind of the main forces in the movie, and you know, invading once they catch up, you've got these kind of faithless stormtroopers who all invade the ship, and in the new movie, you kind of you switch it around, and you're seeing this from the stormtroopers' point of view, and then even to the point where you eventually get to know one of the stormtroopers personally, and that's where I feel like a wrench gets thrown into the works. You've got like, okay, we're kind of redoing the Star Wars movie. However, now things are different though. Right. What if one of these stormtroopers is not just a faithless drone? Is not just a kind of going along and following orders. What if he is actually a person who's got motivations of his own, and he's going to not just kind of do something different, but he's going to actually propel the story forward and be an important player in this story, which I think is great.
I too, I see that with what you mentioned, the superstructure of the film. It's easy to look at it and say, well, it's a clone of A New Hope. They have these people, there's the Resistance, they get together, realize one of them's a Jedi, they go and blow up Starkiller Base that blew up some homeworlds before, and it has that almost, identical basic structure to it. But the internal plot conflicts are all reversed or new or different, And when you start to delve a little deeper into that, you see those changes, and I liked that as well.
I do as well. And also, I've been rewatching the original movie. In fact, while I've been waiting for your call, I've been rewatching Star Wars, sometimes referred to as Episode 4. And it's interesting. It's interesting to see, the things that are the same, the things that are different, and the things I think we've forgotten. We think of Darth Vader as such a badass and such a a lot more regal than say Kylo Ren. But when we're first introduced to him, first of all, he kind of, and I've always thought this, he sort of walks onto he steps over the dead bodies and kind of puts his fists on his hips and kind of looks around, and he looks kind of like a dork. He's like, that's Darth Vader. Like, can you imagine watching this movie, hearing all this great stuff about Darth Vader, and you see that, and you're like, really, that's the guy? This is the guy that you're all talking about.
That's a really good point.
And the next time we see him, and this is really interesting, I hadn't really connected this before I was rewatching again. The next time we see him, he's kind of throwing a tantrum. He's choking a guy, throws him against a wall, and then he screams at a guy, I don't care, tear this ship apart, find the plan. Like, wow, that's not how I think of Darth Vader. I tend to think of him as when he got cool, which was Empire Strikes Back.
Totally.
He doesn't really get cool. He's like kind of like this menacing character in the original Star Wars, and then he's got this kind of battle with Ben Kenobi, which, in the grand scheme of things is not the most exciting lightsaber battle.
Yeah, he's got like 10 minutes of screen time in the whole film.
Yeah, he really is sort of like this ominous kind of background character for a lot of it. But nothing he does is that cool. He doesn't get cool until Empire Strikes Back. And in fact, I would say that the entire Star Wars series doesn't really get that cool until Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, which I think is, I know we're getting a little off topic of Force Awakens, but I think that it's actually relevant because a lot of people, they compare this movie to the original trilogy, but if you compare it to the original movie, it's actually better in so many ways.
Right. I agree with that.
And although the original movie will always, like I said in the original podcast, it was formative for me. So as dorky as a lot of it is, it's still kind of perfect in my heart.
So I have a question for all of us at this point, and that is, did you see the movies individually, and did you wait time between them, or do they kind of all lump together as one experience? Because, for instance, with myself, when I saw them kind of, I don't have individual memories of them. I have the memory of the original saga. That's all I've got. So what about you, James? Do you have that saga memory, or do you have them individually?
Saga memory.
You have the saga memory, and Patrick, where are you at with that?
Well, as I mentioned in the original podcast, I was 9 when the original Star Wars came out, and so I saw each one first release in the movie theater.
Interesting.
As a 10-year-old, as a 11-year-old, as a 13-year-old. So yeah, they are very much their own movies. In that way, although over the years they've sort of maybe shifted a little bit into becoming more one trilogy. But I definitely have very strong memories of them as individual, right. Not just individual features, but individual experiences.
Excellent.
Because like I touched upon in the original podcast, these were experiences. You saw this movie, and especially the first one, everybody is talking about it. It is everywhere, and it's like this cultural phenomenon that's different from what you have today, which is sort of like a marketing phenomenon.
Very true.
And it's hard to say whether Force Awakens would be the same cultural phenomenon.
That's a really good point. It was unknown. Now there were expectations. People did want more of the same, more of that marketing. To see that, for it to live up to expectations.
Well, it's another thing that to factor into this conversation. I really appreciate that point, just like Kyle said. That's an excellent point. And that is, back in the original movie's release, I'm gonna just speculate that there wasn't as much static in the cultural landscape, right? Something like Star Wars comes along, and you can confirm this for me, but something like Star Wars comes along, and it is everything that everybody's talking about all the time. But now, let's face it, even the company that produced this latest Star Wars movie is going to replace it with something in a few months that will compete for your attention on just as grand as a scale.
That's
and I'm
true.
talking about like Disney also owns Marvel.
Right.
So a few scant months after this huge marketing phenomenon, not cultural, but marketing comes out, another marketing juggernaut is going to be jammed in
Very
your
good
face.
point.
And so it can't have the same impact because our attention span is so whittled down to gnat-like quantities, right? What do you think about that, Patrick?
I like that. That makes sense.
I absolutely agree, but a couple points on that. One, they're not just going to come out with another Marvel movie, but within I think it's the end of this year, I believe we have the first of the standalone Star Wars movies.
Rogue One.
I think it's called.
Oh yeah, don't. I'm not talking just Marvel. Like I'm not even talking just Disney. Like there'll be animated movies that will rob our attention away from Star Wars for a while. There'll be DC movies, Marvel movies, Bond movies. Blah, blah. The landscape is so littered that it can never. You can't. That lightning in a bottle. You'll never capture it again.
So I don't want to get us stuck in this reoccurring situation because I want you to be able to say everything else that you had. So are there other topics that you didn't get to say much about that you'd like to move on to?
Well, I would like to make two more points
Sure.
on that. One, it was that's a huge difference between the late '70s, early '80s, and today. Like we didn't have an internet back then. We didn't have all these other things that not only compete for our attention, but also have been blamed for reducing our attention span. That's who we are now. Go and watch the original trilogy. In fact, the whole original trilogy, and you'll have all these very slow-paced, scenes that take their time. They don't within the context of movies that were shot back then. They don't feel slow. They just feel much more leisurely than movies are now. So that's just a difference between the sort of the zeitgeist of then and now. The third point I was going to make, I forgot. So let's move on.
Okay, so give us anything else about the movie that you loved, hated, didn't get to talk about, thought was interesting.
Well, I've got a few notes here. Let's see. Okay, let's get into this. I would like to rebut something James said. He complained about the fact that Harrison Ford is getting paid more than Daisy Ridley.
Yeah.
And of course, I would love to see Daisy Ridley, especially in the next movie. I want to see her get paid like mountains of money because she is the star, obviously, of this new trilogy. But Harrison Ford, being an established a huge movie star, one of the biggest movie stars of the 1980s, that he should, of course, get paid more. I think. I don't think that's a gender. He should get paid more than anybody.
A respectable amount.
A respectable amount.
Right. Yeah.
But Daisy Ridley
not orders of magnitude larger.
Right. But I think if you had anybody, how's this? I don't know. I haven't looked at any kind of figures, but I hope that Carrie Fisher is getting paid just as much as Harrison Ford. That's what I hope.
I think they paid her in fucking cigarettes.
Say again?
They paid her in cartons of Marlboro Lights. That's what they paid her in. Her voice was just anyway, raspy as all hell.
And hopefully dog food for that adorable little dog of hers.
All right, yeah. Keep going. What do you got?
Okay, couple things. Let's see. Cash grab. That's another of James's complaints about this one. As I recall, at the time, Return of the Jedi was called the same when it first came out.
Right.
That's kind of gotten forgotten. I think that it was seen as, of course, a recycling of the plot. And then you add cute teddy bears that kill people, and then you've got like all these kind of toy marketing aspects of it. So a lot of there were complaints about that as well. This is not a new complaint about the Star Wars series. So that's one point. Let's see. I do agree. This is I don't remember if I mentioned this originally, but I do agree that one of the weakest points of The Force Awakens is that the political situation is kind of vague.
Yeah.
I know Josh kind of explained a little bit, but watching the movie, it didn't hurt it. I just kind of like glossed over it in my own head, like, okay, there's something political going on. It doesn't really make me care less about these characters.
You had to infer it yourself a lot.
You sort of did, yeah. I think that's one of the weaker parts of the movie.
Right.
Let's see. I think it's really interesting to speculate as to what is going on with Kylo Ren. Is he really trying to finish what Vader started? As in what we know Vader started, and what Vader started was the toppling of the Empire. And it's really interesting to speculate, is that really what he meant? Is that the twist? The kind of, the what's the name of our director? Who's this guy? The director of, pardon?
The M. Night Shyamalan twist?
No. Well, I'm thinking of the actual director of this movie.
Oh, J.J. Abrams.
Thank you, sorry.
I heard twist and I went to Shyamalan.
Right, yeah, it's a natural response. But is that the twist? Is he really doing that? And is the whole point of that exchange between him and Han Solo on the bridge, is it that Han Solo gets that, like, okay, I think I see what you're saying. You're saying you have to do, I will do whatever you need to do, and I think I know what that means.
Interesting. So might have
multiple. It's really interesting to watch. Say again?
I'll tell you what, if they go with that angle, I'd be pleased because it would represent an interesting twist as opposed to just keeping bad guys bad and good guys good and slotting them where they belong and having them play out their roles. But at the same time, they really have to handle it carefully because with this first movie, they've followed the template of the original Star Wars so closely that a radical departure like this, as in, he's kind of mole-ish, working from the inside and, slips into bad, but is really like, his ultimate mission has been all along to take down the Empire, a la what he, interprets Vader's final going out mission to be. They have to be really careful if they do that because it could be handled. It has the potential to be really mishandled. You see what I'm saying?
You could come at the end and be like, but we fooled you the whole time, and it could be
because they've already sort of set a course for pretty standard storytelling. You know what I'm saying? Like they're really on that.
It would have to be very nuanced moving forward.
Yeah.
But to that effect, Patrick, give us one more point that you had because we're almost out of time here.
Okay. I started to touch on this, on what is so interesting about Finn, and the thing that makes him really interesting is Maz. During that little conversation, she stops everything. She crawls up on the table and she says, I've seen your eyes before or something, but she's basically saying, like, there's something going on with this guy. You guys should pay attention.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of gets forgotten, and that's a little bit a fault of the storytellers. I think there's so much going on in that area of the movie that it's kind of easy to forget. But, like, hold on. Maz just said this guy's super important, everybody. You kind of forgot that.
Those scenes got a little bit overblown by the way hearkening Cantina references, the new Yoda character they introduced. Everything got overshadowed, I believe, in that kind of fan service. But yeah, that was a really important part of the movie.
Well, see, to be honest with you, a lot of the beef that I raised, including those characters, Finn and the wannabe Yoda. If I get around to seeing this movie again, which I'll only do if it's on a dollar theater or something like that, then I'll try to give those. Yeah, maybe I'll get a bootleg. I'll try to give those moments their due, and I'll try to hone in on the important stuff. But it's a lot of times, like you guys are admitting, it's a little bit cluttered in there, right?
It's tough. Yeah. So my last question for you, Patrick, is Han Solo's demise. How'd you feel? What went through your head?
Oh, wow. So I've seen the movie 3 times thus far, and I have tears in my eyes every single time. Every single time. And, I'll tell you, I grew up with this character.
Right.
I literally grew up with this character. I grew up, he was part of my childhood play. He was part of my, he's one of those guys, like, you're in a situation, especially maybe in your teenage years, what would Han Solo do?
Right.
You know, kind of thing. Maybe not the best role model, but hey, he's there. There he is.
It's interesting in the same way that if you took a character from history, or somebody that's been like really loved and respected, like I'm going to use this as an example, but this isn't what I'm referencing. But James Bond has been in. I mean, there's 24 movies now that feature Bond, and if in the next Bond film they just killed him and just ended it. I mean, it's a little bit different because it's not like the main driving force of the story. He's like the character that everything builds around. But it's as if you've taken this thing that everybody has lived with for 40 years now nearly, and then you just axe it and like wipe it out of existence. And it has a lot of connection. It has a lot of history to it, and now it's just like gone. So it's kind of weird.
I see your point, but I'd argue that it is very different because it would be kind of the same, perhaps, if we had Sean Connery playing an old version of Bond.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
Because then it would be like, oh, this guy, wow, yeah, he's Bond, and this is his old, he's the guy that we've known for all these years. But it doesn't feel like we've known, like,
the reset button
no,
takes quite a bit.
That's true. That was
another version of him.
Right. That was kind of a metaphor likeness. If you basically if they had ended somebody's story, they pick it up somewhere. Everybody liked this, and then you just end the story of one of the main characters. You're never going to hear from them or see them again. Maybe, who the hell knows? But that's that's the end of it. So it has that finality to it that was very striking during that.
Yeah, it definitely does. It absolutely does, and it is sad, kind of stepping back and realizing, oh, we never got to see Han and Luke together again.
Right.
We never got to see that kind of character.
Yeah. I mean, he'll be a Force ghost or something. Who knows?
I doubt it.
I saw I saw a fan theory that said, what if Han Solo wasn't dead? And I was like, oh, you mean like when he fell into like the core of the planet and it exploded like 20 minutes later? Yeah, what if he's not dead? That's ridiculous.
When they killed him with a lightsaber, and then they killed him with a fall from a great height, and then they killed him by blowing up the planet that he was on.
Yeah, he's good.
I think he's dead.
All right, well, Patrick, thank you so much for talking to us. We're going to have to let you go here. Thank you so much for picking up the phone.
You're welcome, and thank you guys for calling. I do one final thing I'd like to say, and
Leave
I'd like
us.
to ask James this.
Yes.
And James, I have a challenge for you.
Okay.
Will you see this movie again?
Like I said earlier.
See this movie again? What? Will you see this movie again? I know you said you won't. I know it has to be in a dollar theater. But will you see it again? Trying to push aside your prejudices against it, and just try, because some of the things you said, and we touched on this again in the original podcast. It sounds like you missed some of the plot lines because you were so angry at the movie.
That might be true, and I'm gonna hedge your statement with, James, will you see it again if magically this film ended up in your possession completely for free, perhaps as a gift of some sort?
Do not buy it for me. That's what I'm saying. I'll go see it in a dollar theater. I'll get a bootleg.
What if you were to borrow it from somebody? Would you see it again?
Yes, I would borrow it.
All right.
Do not spend money on my behalf. Do not give that rat, the evil rat empire, your money or mine. Like, you get the bootleg. Subvert, baby.
Perfect point, Patrick. Thank you so much for adding that in there.
You're so welcome.
All right, we'll talk to you soon and get you on the show again, all right?
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, buddy. See ya.
Yep.
There he goes.
All right.
Patrick, VIP.
On that note, we've talked to 3 people. Let's talk about Rick for a second. We'll give Rick some
Rick.
service. This is I'm sensing a 2-part episode now with this
unbelievable
these cold calls.
We have no restraint, Kyle. None.
So Rick came on as well. He can't be here today. One of his favorite points I know was BB-8, and I must say I don't think they could have made a cuter new droid to give us for the film.
Stupid Disney mascot.
It's a marketing.
He's the snowman from Frozen. That's what he is.
But I think Rick and you had a very kindred spirit on a lot of things going into the film.
Yes.
I think that he had a lot of dislikes in the same way that you had. I think he walked away with it with an overall, more glossy look to it.
Yeah.
He didn't let some of those things bog him down. But he did express, and I don't know if he got his point across during the podcast, an extreme loathing in his talks with us about coming on the podcast for the character of Jar Jar Binks and how the prequels almost trashed and tarnished the original trilogy for him. So he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he would want to make sure that during our podcast we had enough things to throw at him in case he just ranted about emo Vader and Jar Jar Binks the whole time. So you have a little cousin in the cynicism there for parts of the universe. But is there anything else you wanted to add about our buddy Rick?
I wanted to thank Rick because going back and listening to the podcast, he made excellent points about the special effects. He made excellent points about the fight sequences and how went away from the Braveheart massive army A rushing massive army B and all these overhead ridiculous flipping, shooting, lasers, shots to more of an intimate scale battle. Rick, well done, my man. And he did. He looked at it with a little bit more of a cynical eye, I felt, than other people. Like, he was very much confused about the Luke Skywalker angle. Like, why the fuck is this map broken up into pieces to begin with? Why is half of it hidden in here, another half hidden there, and da-da-da? And so, and I also remember when I made points about, like, a movie should stand on its own, Rick, I saw him nodding, so I felt like I had a little bit of a,
Yeah, Rick was a
Rick's
very
all right.
silent supporter to you. I don't think he wanted to get eaten up by all the the other people in there. But yeah, there was a lot of, things in the film that are hard to overlook, and I think a lot of us overlooked some of them in the hopes of wanting to have a good time and enjoy the movie. Hopefully they'll get better as they move along. Who's to say? But yeah, Rick was your supporter in that endeavor. So thank you, Rick. And that will conclude part 2 of lukewarm calls Star Wars: The Force Awakens. It's over. I think we can put it to rest until people movie news us with some things, or we have to do some really, listener mail about it.
I really hope
we talked it to death.
We have beat this thing down like fucking Kylo Ren or whatever the fuck his name is, beat down some
Rilo
consoles.
Ken.
Is it Rilo Ken?
No, I'm just trying to screw you up. That.
You guys always mess with me. Anyway, lukewarm calls.
Part 2. It's done.
That's
my
God. Marathon sessions here, Kyle.
Final.
Yeah.
We'll do some listener mail at some point. Send us your questions, concerns. They can be about The Force Awakens. James can deal with it.
Yeah.
loudontheset@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, your opinions, what you're looking forward to in the future with Star Wars and all the other things we talk about on the show.
Send us some mail.
Give us some ideas.
Yeah.
We got ideas of our own, but people have good ideas. We know that. We're scientists.
Record us a message. Send it to us. We'll play it on the air.
Send us. Record us something. We'll play it on the show. It'll be fun. Right. Thank you again for listening. loudontheset@gmail.com. Check us out on YouTube, iTunes, all over the place. Go see some good movies. We'll talk soon.
See you later.
And cut.